All right, here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to the Gremlin Gear. Today we're going to be talking about radios. We're going to be talking about kit-worn tactical radios, the fun ones. Stuff that you wear on your body, stuff that you wear to communicate with other teammates. We're going to be going over some radios that fill that specific role for team communication, from person-to-person communication, simplex communication. And this is going to be a slightly higher level radio video. I've made some in the past. This one is going to be covering some nuances, features, covering some radios that I've talked about previously, some compatibility, connectivity, cool features, things to look at, things to look forward to, and features to look for while you're shopping around for radios. So this is your first time, welcome. Glad to have you here. And if you're returning, go ahead and like and subscribe. Welcome to the Gremlin Gear. So like I said, today we're going to be going over some handheld radios. Team radios is really what I would consider these to be. Really what I'm talking about is, like I said, kit-worn radios. Going into it a little bit, if you haven't seen any of my other radio videos, I am licensed amateur radio operator of my general class license, which means I can work the magic HF bands. What we're talking about is nowhere near as magical as HF, but I highly encourage all of my listeners to get into amateur radio for a lot of reasons. Biggest one being you will just learn so much by being around other licensed amateurs. If you get involved in a local club or if you know people, there's just a bunch of jokes, like, at least that I like to make, like amateur radio is kind of like this esoteric art, this weird stuff that is hard to find any good knowledge on YouTube. There's more now. Whenever I was getting into it at like the tail end of 2021, there wasn't that much on YouTube. It was really hard to find anything that was good, and it was very hard to find stuff that fit the needs of a prepared citizen. So if you're watching this, you probably have some criteria in mind subconsciously. A rugged radio, a radio I can talk to two or more people to at the same time. Something that's, like I said, rugged, durable, waterproof, and a radio that has features that revolve around it being worn on kit. And what you're normally going to be geared toward is like police department, fire department radios that people like first responders would be using because they're rugged, they're durable, they're proven. But what you'll find is, first of all, most amateur radio enthusiasts don't care about those same things. They don't have the same things in mind like you and me. They might be taking a handheld radio out to a POTA activation and don't really need it to be waterproof, because if it starts raining, they're just going to get under a tent, an umbrella, or go get back in the car, and they don't really care about those things. Other problem being, if you're trying to get a radio like a first responder uses, you're probably going to be geared towards looking at Motorola, and Motorola is essentially impossible to buy radios from, to program radios, and to get anything for, period. And you're not going to be getting military radios. You can just forget about military radios. They don't exist. You're not going to get them. If you do get them, good luck actually programming and configuring them. All this stuff is locked down pretty hard. And there's reasons for that. Not to get too much in the weeds of it, but I'm going to be talking about a few options for you today that actually are possible, radios that you can look at getting, and why I think there's a lot of value in these. I've covered these in some of my videos. It's nothing really new. But we're going to go ahead and get into them. And I'm really going to be showcasing two radios that I think are the best options for team radios. Actually, three. I'm going to throw in there the radio that I distribute out for my teammates. So without further ado, let's get into it. You've probably seen this radio before. It's not it was my first pick. And there's reasons for that, because it's literally like a multi-tool of a radio. It is a really cool piece. You can do a lot with it. But it's not my first pick if you're going to get a dedicated squad or team radio or a team radio system. But I'll go ahead and show you the first one that I got. It is the DMR or BTEC DMR, and you've probably seen these everywhere. You've seen the Anytone 878s, and I think this is the DMR 6X2. I always get the name wrong. 6X2, I think is what it is, or 6XT. I don't know where I come up with the other one from, but it's the BTEC DMR radios. This is not the Pro. There's two different versions. There's a base version, which is what I have, and then there's the Pro version, which has Bluetooth and is IP67, I believe, IP67 rated waterproof. I would go for the Pro. If you're going to get this radio, I wouldn't do what I did. There's a ton of pros to getting Bluetooth on a handheld radio. There's so much you can do with it if you're licensed as well, mainly if you're licensed. I'm going to have better, easier connectivity, and that waterproof rating is going to be a must. If you're getting a kit-worn radio that's going to be in the weather and the elements, you're going to want waterproofness. So why this radio? Without getting too much in the weeds of it, I'll just get into some of the features, because I don't want to make this a whole in-depth radio video. You can find those elsewhere. There's a few cool things about this radio. The biggest thing you got to understand whenever you're buying DMR radios. DMR is a digital signal protocol. It's based from Motorola. It comes out of the commercial sector. So for those of you who don't know, amateur radio is a kind of hobbyist enthusiast area. That's where our licensing comes from. But the DMR and commercial radio space is a completely different area. It's a completely different space. What you will find is whenever you're shopping for radios like this, you'll start to come across other commercial radios. The difference with commercial radios, they have different things in mind, different focuses. One of those focuses being durability, okay, ruggedness, because we don't want our first responders and stuff breaking their equipment, or the municipalities that are buying them, we don't want them breaking the stuff. And a big thing is about buying commercial radios is that they're mostly kind of unlocked. They're kind of haywire. And what I mean by that is if you go buy a Baofeng, even now, I know the Baofeng that I have, the UV5R that I have, a lot of those amateur radios, if it is a licensed amateur radio, I forget what section it's under, part, I want to say it's 105, but I think that might be something for UASs. If it is defined as an amateur radio, legally, it must be imported, right? Like a Baofeng be imported. It must be imported, locked down to just the amateur radio frequencies. These commercial radios, they're not because they're not amateur radios. They're just commercial radios. So what I mean by that is, typically with any radio, you have a space of bandwidth that you can transmit in. This is a dual band radio, which means that it can transmit on two different sets of bands, 2 meters and 70 centimeters. VHF and UHF. You've heard that a lot. If you're shopping around for handheld radios, you've heard that a lot. So that means it's a dual band radio. It can do two different bands. That's not the case. Some radios are multi-band and they have, almost a dozen bands they can transmit on, or monoband radios, which means it can only transmit on one band. And we're going to talk about those in a minute. So the cool thing is this is dual band, but it's also not locked down. Commercial radios will almost never be locked down to just amateur radio bands. So how is that helpful to you? Well, as a prepared citizen, if you're trying to maybe go outside of just what's legal, for example, if you're trying to, if your adversary knows that you're going to be transmitting in the amateur radio bands, they know where to look. If they're looking at an SDR, okay, they can find it somehow. Or if they're using a scanner that has predefined amateur radio bands on it, they know to listen in on those bands. So this can transmit outside of those where it's actually not legal for you unless you have a license for whatever frequencies you're transmitting on, essentially. But just understand that it's a possibility. It also means because the 70 centimeter band has all the FRS and GMRS frequencies on it and MURS, well, that's actually VHF, but you're actually able to transmit on those as well. So this is a Swiss Army knife. It's like a multi-tool of a radio. You can transmit on every single usable frequency. Don't get confused. There are frequencies that this cannot transmit on, like it can't do 6 meters, it can't do 10 meters, it can't do 1.25 meters. Yeah, it can't do that. So there are things that are outside of its frequency range. But this can do a lot. If you don't know anything about DMR, DMR is digital. It's separate from analog. You can get into the science of it later, but pretty much anyone with an analog radio cannot hear digital signals. Now, you must be a licensed amateur radio operator to use them by the rules, legally, right? As people like to say legally. You need to have a license, use a call sign, but you can do so much cool stuff with DMR, and you've probably seen videos on this. I'm not going to get into all the weeds of it, but I'm going to explain to you how it will benefit you in a very simple way. It's kind of the goal with this video. This is going to transition to the next radios that we're going to look at that actually do DMR really good. I would argue better than this radio. And to cover a few more features, this radio can do APRS, digital packet report, or automatic packet reporting system, just like GPS. It's like a GPS beacon, and honestly some other features you can look at, but that is a cool thing. It does have that. So DMR and digital. Cool thing is with digital, you're working with some other features that analog radios they don't have. And besides having some things that, you know, are kind of obscure, whether it's really there's a marginal difference or a benefit, you use less bandwidth, you have a digital signal, so, you know, you're technically encrypted, I guess, from people using analog radios. They will not be able to hear your signal. Doesn't mean you are encrypted, you're not. You're just using a completely different style or way of modulating your signal than analog. You can do cool things pretty much like, I would consider it subnetting out a frequency, and you can do it many different ways. So with DMR, you can split up, and I'm trying to get my numbers on this right. So let's say you have 25 kilohertz of bandwidth. With a DMR radio, you can actually split that in half. So you actually have 12.5 kilohertz and 12.5 kilohertz here. And pretty much what you can start doing is, from that point, you can create different talk groups, which are like, pretty much to think about them as group chats in your text messages, all right? You can create different group chats that you can talk to different people. So you could have a group chat on one frequency where only these people talk. Maybe these, you know, 2 guys in your squad, and on the same frequency on the other side, you can have 2 people that are talking, right? And 2 separate chats. And then you can create an all-call channel, which calls everybody. And you can do things like that. You can change, what is it? There's talk groups, and there are contacts. Contacts just means pretty much you'd be a contact and I would be a contact. You define that in your radio, and your radio will actually show a contact ID. It will actually show you who's talking. And they don't have to say their name or anything. If you have a contact program, you can put in an alias, and it will actually recognize the contact just from a radio ID. And it's all arbitrary. It's just kind of all made up. That's another cool thing about it. But yeah, you can literally have like multiple group chats going on with digital. And there's different color codes, which is a whole different thing. Those are kind of like your CTCSS tones, like privacy tones. Not really encryption, but it can prevent you from hearing outside traffic, stuff like that. But it is really, really cool, the fact that you can start doing stuff like that with digital. Another thing is with digital or DMR, I'm going to kind of use that, those terms synonymously. Audio quality is pretty much always going to be better, especially if you have a good commercial radio. And that's one of the reasons I wouldn't really recommend this one. It doesn't have the greatest audio quality. Honestly, very loud speaker. I'm sure you've heard that if you've watched videos on this radio. Very loud speaker. Not the highest quality of audio though. Clarity is what we're looking at. Clarity is just okay. It's okay. There are all sorts of other cool things you can start doing with digital radios. Some of them have simplex repeaters, which it'll actually record a message that it receives and then transmit it a second time. So if you're in the middle of two people and this person can't talk to this person, this radio is being used as a repeater, okay? And then they can hear each other through you. You can, this is something I'm going to talk a little bit more about, especially with this next radio. With, like I was kind of saying, this radio is GPS, so it can do that APRS thing, which is actually an amateur radio. It is an amateur radio feature. Other commercial radios usually have GPS and Bluetooth enabled, especially GPS, because usually these radios will be linked into some IP-based network, some IP-based repeater system, which pretty much means it's just connected to the internet, which is another thing you can do with DMR. I keep relooping here. You can connect radios through the internet and extend your range tremendously. Literally limitless as long as the internet's up. You can have IP-based repeaters, IP-based gateways that you can talk to pretty much a computer, and it's going to transmit your signal out through RF somewhere else. And I want you to think about it this way. Like I said, these come from the commercial sector. Well, where would that be useful? The city. There's all these buildings everywhere. Maybe we're miles apart in a big city. And you have those IP-based networks that can transmit signals through the internet to another first responder, public service member, whatever. You could probably see why that kind of goes out the window if we're talking about doomsday stuff, whatever you want to call it. If the internet's not working, okay, those features wouldn't be available to you, but that doesn't mean that all the other features wouldn't be available. DMR is still pretty kick-ass, especially for squad style radios. So what I was getting to is that these are actually able to transmit GPS data over the air with the click of a button through digital modulation, which is not something you can do with analog unless you're running APRS and you're doing APRS via analog, and you got to have some other stuff set up. This can pretty much do it natively by the push of a button, and that's it. Now, the systems that you have to ingest that data can all depend on other things. Hey, so I'm going back and rethinking about everything I talked about. No, just kidding, just the one part. So, where I was talking about these DMR radios being able to transmit their GPS data over the air, over digital. Cool thing is with that, if you don't know anything about this stuff or you haven't looked into it, there is a company called Mojave Repeater, and they have recently developed a way for Bluetooth-enabled Hyteras to actually transmit. Well, the radios do the transmitting, but it is a way for Hytera radios to be Bluetoothed in with a plug-in into ATAC. And so that means natively to the radio, and I guess kind of now to ATAC with this plug-in, you'll actually be able to receive your teammates' GPS data as soon as they transmit their radio, which is extremely cool. Two things about it though. One, you have to have a Bluetooth-enabled Hytera, which I do not have. Mine is not Bluetooth enabled. I don't know. This wouldn't work with any other Bluetooth radios. I think it has to be a Hytera. So that won't work. Something like a BTEC Pro, I don't think that would work. And lastly, the plug-in is about $350 or more, which is about as much as a radio. And it's a little expensive to just kind of be a toy to play around with. But it's something that I've looked into. I've kind of wanted to get into this for a while. ATAC is a super, super cool tool. I plan on making some videos on it in the future whenever I actually have some more experience with it. But the problem right now is just it's very, very complicated, rudimentary, niche. if you thought getting into amateur radio is hard, I feel like getting into ATAC is like getting into amateur radio again for the first time. It's that, like, you need to have a guru. It's crazy to me. I understand the basics of it, but I don't see myself using it every day as like a really functional tool. And there's a lot of cool stuff it can do. But inserting that geographic data is one of those things that is very cool. That would be awesome, because the only other way to work around that is by getting something like a Meshtastic mesh node and having that Bluetooth to a tablet and receive your teammates' GPS positioning over LoRa, which is different from regular just like RF. It's pretty reliable from what I understand. It is limited in some way, but I think having an all-in-one system with a radio that can send the data and then input it into a mapping system like ATAC is honestly way cooler. So if anyone knows any way to work around buying this $350 plug-in and having a Bluetooth enabled radio, because for me I'd have to go out and buy a new radio and then buy a $300 software patch pretty much, which I don't want to do. So if anyone knows any workarounds, let me know. On with the rest of the video. I just want to throw that out there. So you guys would be thinking about stuff like that, which is really cool. It's a really cool team awareness tool. Okay, back to the video. So let's get into my honestly, my number one recommended radio. If you were going to go out and shop and buy a radio, here's the thing. If you're looking for a dedicated kit-worn radio, you probably don't really want an amateur radio. I know a lot of people run the Yaesus. They run the Yaesu like VX6R, whatever it's called. It's a ruggedized outdoor style analog radio. And if you have a bunch of buddies that are all amateur radio enthusiasts, licensed amateur radio operators, that I could see how that would be advantageous to be running just like an analog ruggedized amateur radio. But you're still missing out on all the awesome features of DMR. And that's not the route that I chose to go with. I chose to go with, okay, let's look at some of the best commercial radios that they have on the market. And well, maybe that's a stretch. I went for the stuff that was available and I heard recommendations for. But I will have to say, give credit where credit's due. These radios are very nice. And they are just feature rich depending on which ones you get. There's a CPS available for it, which means you can actually program it. There's a computer programming software that you can actually get your hands on to program these, which if you can't program your radio, especially these DMR radios, man, if you can't program it, you pretty much can't use it. So, some of you guys might know this is coming. What did I pick? Picked Hytera, and this is an accessory I have on there, so you can kind of just forget about it, although I'm going to talk about the accessories. I picked a Hytera. This is the PD. They pretty much all start with PD, so it'll be a Hytera PD 782. G, and the G means it has GPS, and I think the B's or the BT's means it has Bluetooth. This doesn't have Bluetooth. I thought it did when I bought it, but it doesn't. I don't think it does. I have to look into it a little bit more. I don't think it does. I don't know if there's any way to modify these to accept Bluetooth. That'd be great. I doubt it. I really doubt it. But that would be really, really nice for some compatibility stuff. So why Hytera? IP67 or 68 rated. They're all very dustproof, waterproof. They're going to be extremely durable. One thing I wanted to mention, these are Chinese radios, okay? But they're built for first responders, public servants, all that stuff. They're built to last, man. This thing I bought used, it has scratches on the screen, dirt and dust on the keys, and you know, all that stuff. This is made in China, but man, like, this feels way clunkier than this radio. It feels a lot more sturdy. And this one's technically not waterproof rated or anything. That being said, I have worn this in the rain. I've worn it in the rain so many times in a backpack or on me. I've dropped this radio in the snow and then stepped on it. It was in snow and mud. I've dropped it. Like, this radio, if this thing was going to break, it would have broke by now. I think it got a ton of moisture in it recently. I forget doing what. It fogged up the screen and then it went away. So, you know, it's not technically waterproof, but it's been through it with me. I've had it for about 5 years, I want to say now. Something like that, going on 5 years. I've had this for much less, but I trust this radio a lot. Cool thing is, with Hyteras, audio quality, better than the other ones, or better than that radio. Loudspeaker, all the same features you're going to get with DMR that I just explained. Key difference with this radio is it's mono band. You will not be able to transmit, well, you will be able to transmit on amateur radio bands with this. Anything that's 70 centimeters. It's 400 to like 527 megahertz is the range of this radio. You have to watch out for that stuff whenever you're buying these Hyteras. So where do you go to buy a Hytera? You're gonna go to eBay, or you're gonna find someone who's got them. I bought mine through a guy on Instagram. His name was Resistant Civilian. I made a video kind of talking about that in the past. My experience was good. He actually gave me the CPS. I bought it it was included with the radio. Got me the CPS, gave me a pre-programmed code plug, and he actually had a help video. I think I paid extra for that. About how to program and use the Hytera CPS. And so that's what I'm saying, guys. If you're going to go and get this stuff, you really need to go get it from a guru. Okay, I don't know this guy at all, but he was very nice and he helped me out. And I think he gets in these Hyteras somehow. I don't know, it's through his job or whatever. And he sells them and he helps people out like me. And I'm sure he'll be more than happy to help you out if you go reach out to him. It's good to get some guru though that really knows what they're talking about and that you can ask questions for, because like I have done the sitting at my desk for hours figuring out the radio stuff on my own. Like I said, YouTube wasn't very popular whenever I was getting into all this stuff and trying to figure out, you know, what's a radio that I can wear on my kit, because no one made videos on that. No one made videos on that 4 or 5 years ago. It wasn't a thing. It's easier now. Everyone's talking about it. Radios are swagger now, and they're super sexy to have on your chest rig and stuff. But it wasn't being talked about when I was looking into it. So find a guru, find someone like me, ask me. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. I might give you some stuff for free, actually. I don't care. I just want to equip you, really. Feel free to. Okay, what are some other banger features about this radio? Oh, my marker fell out. Now I don't know where this thing goes back. Long story. Anyways, this is a big deal. This is your connector for push-to-talks and accessories. What you're going to find on 90% of Chinese radios are these Kenwood style K-plugs. I've talked about them a lot. Talked about them too much. And they suck. They're 2 pins and they clip into the radio. They fit every single radio differently. I have 3 radios, all made by the same manufacturer. They're the Wuxun KG95Gs. Whatever. They're GMRS radios. Take that style plug. My push talk fits every single one of them differently. Well, some of them are sloppy, some of them are tight, some of them are just in the middle. This one's fine. I don't like these plugs. I don't trust them. And they'll come out on you whenever you're rocking gear and running your stuff hard. They will pop out, and then you're pressing your push to talk and nothing's happening and your radio's freaking out in your pocket because the connectors are loose. So that's probably the biggest reason to not get these like Chinese, not built specifically for the commercial area, the commercial space, those radios. Don't get those. This is called a multi-pin connector. And the coolest thing about it, yeah, I'm unscrewing it from the side of the radio. It literally has a port that, you know, permanently connects, you know, it's not going anywhere. It's literally screwed in the side of the radio. This thing will never come undone. You know, I mean, not unless you do something horrible to it. It's great. I mean, it's fantastic. It solves all the problems. It's bulkier, sure, but it solves all the problems, okay? Another thing, you're looking for ruggedness. Your push-to-talk really matters. So I'm a big fan of running the radio up to a push-to-talk. Speaker mic, whatever you want to call it. This is really a speaker mic, not a push-to-talk really. But it's got a button on it. And whenever you get radios like this, you'll actually get into more serious, heavy-duty, heavy-grade speaker mics. Guys, this is a long video. This one is from Impact, okay? I have not extensively used this, but I will say I actually got a really good deal on this. So this is about $137, $140 push talk. I got it for kind of a steal, for like 80. Really good deal. These, I can just tell you, this is a much more sturdy, rugged push talk than what you're going to get with these like Kenwood K-style plugs. And I would get from what I can tell, this is going to be a really good push talk. So if you're shopping, I would give Impact a look. Look up Impact speaker mics. Maybe I'll link to them. I'll link to them below. I'll link to them for you, sure. Why not? I will. And you'll find some really solid stuff. So let's wrap this up. This has been a long video. Some things to think about. Some things to talk about, things to listen to me about. If I was going to go out and get a squad style radio, I would shop Hytera and I would stick to Hytera. Reasons being, sure, they're monoband and you're limited to what you can transmit to outside of the 70 centimeter range, but I want you to think about this. I'm the type of person who likes a lot of flexibility, a lot of options. I like having options. Like, I wanted a radio that would do everything. And this gets pretty close, but it has some major drawbacks. What's better? Having a radio that'll do all the crap that this does that I can't do all at the same time, or understanding that my squad radio is going to bounce between maybe 1 and 2 other frequencies, because the entire purpose of this device being worn on my body is to talk to the people that I'm currently in a gunfight with or doing security with or whatever. But you can see how this radio, this piece of equipment, needs to perform under very strict measures and very high stress situations. Even just an airsoft game. I mean, that's where most of my experience comes from. You know how stressful it is whenever I really need to make a call out and my speaker mic came unplugged and I'm in a gunfight and now I don't have communication. I can't stop what I'm doing and I don't know where my team is, or I need to make a call for my team and now we just can't because all of our gear is failing. It is extremely aggravating and stressful, and I would only imagine it would be a nightmare if your life was on the line. So buy gear like your life is on the line. Buy stuff that's built for serious work. This is. And what I'm getting at here too is mainly that, like, your squad style radio, whatever you want to call this, is going to stay on like 1 or 2 channels that you program, right? You're not going to be doing all this like amateur radio, like making contacts and stuff. Like, if you are a licensed amateur radio operator and you like kit and gear and this stuff and you want to have that capability out in the field because, you know, you're like, well, world ends scenario and I want to be able to stay in touch with my squad and maybe try to reach out to people over the amateur radio network, you know, like repeaters and stuff if they are still up, have 2 radios. I'm serious. It might sound ridiculous now, but here's the way I want you to think about this. Most chest rigs, for example, if you buy a tap panel, if you buy surplus, has 2 radio pouches, 1 on each side. I would run my squad style radio on my left side always, like I always do, and my extra amateur radio that I'm probably not going to access that often. On my right side, no push to talk. Left side, push to talk. Right side, no push to talk. If you're buying a chest rig, you should have 2 radio pouches. I genuinely do believe that. I've always tried to shop for chest rigs that have 2 radio pouches, because there are, I've heard, this was kind of instilled in my mind at an early point, was, oh, like citizens don't need 2 radio pouches, it's stupid. Or maybe the argument was they don't need 2 radio down leads, which that kind of makes sense, although you could probably have 2 down leads and maybe run your amateur radio and your squad style radio in the same headset, which would be cool, but I also think it would be very confusing, and I wouldn't recommend doing that or spending all the money on it. Because with an amateur radio, there's a lot of piddling. You're gonna take this thing out of a pouch and do a lot of this with it, and you want to see what's happening while you're trying to talk to other people. You don't want to be using your boom mic and not see what repeater you're on and all this. You don't want to do that. You want to have the radio out in front of you. You know, if you want to LARP super hard, yeah, you can do it, sure. You know, I think it's a lot of money to do that. Whatever. You'd have a much simpler setup, a lot less complexity, less wires running down your neck, which is great whenever there's less of that crap going on. And this is really just supposed to be dedicated, devoted to talking to your team, staying on a channel or 2. Another reason I like the Hytera is it has great button locks and a really limited VFO knob. Okay, these amateur radio VFO knobs go infinitely. This one will only go up to, it maxes out. And then I can only turn it back the other way so many times. And it also has channel markers on the dial, so I can look down and see what channel I'm on without pulling the whole radio out. See what I'm saying? This is a purpose-built radio. This is more flexible, but it's not as purpose-built, not as purpose-driven. That's the difference between having really focused gear and testing out the waters. And this is not a bad purchase. I everyday carry this radio. It's a good radio. But what I'm saying is, kit worn stuff, you know, like really, you know, you don't really know until you get into this stuff and you try some stuff out, which really is the part that sucks the most about it. That's why I make videos for you, okay? Because I've already kind of done some of the research. I've already done some of the trial and error. I kind of know, I know a thing or two. I don't know everything, but I know some stuff. So this is kind of where I would steer you. Go shop Hyteras, go find someone who's selling them, go see what's available, you know, kind of assess what you want and need. And if you're still wondering, yes, you can operate on these license free on FRS and GMRS channels and frequencies. You can buy a GMRS license and be a little bit more legal with what you're doing. Because if you know anything about FRS, you really shouldn't be using this on there, but you can, and no one's really going to know the difference as long as you're not, you know, putting out way too much power and being obnoxious. But really no one's going to care. If you're in an airsoft field using your Hytera radio on FRS channels, no one's going to care. I promise you. No one's going to care. So, as I wrap it up, I want to show you one last thing. This is the PD782. And what I decided to get for all of my teammates was a simpler version of the same radio. It's like its little brother, the PD662, all right? Different radio profiles. This one's thinner, has a clickier button, and a different multi-pin port. It still has a screw, but it's at the bottom. So these are different connector types, okay? I don't really, I just have stuff for this. I don't have anything for this. This is actually my brother's radio, and he's got a speaker mic and all that stuff. So I don't buy accessories for these two, besides a programming cable. Got to buy these programming cables, and they're all different connector types. It's a great time. It's not. But this doesn't have any buttons on it because I don't want my buddies who don't know what they're doing as far as programming these things. They cannot change any frequencies. They cannot change any real meaningful data. They can't input new contacts or anything in their radio without me programming it. So they have more limited permissions than I do. I know what I'm doing. I can front face program a radio. I know how to do that. I'm not bothering them with that. They're getting the simple dummy dumb radio. Okay, but more or less this has the same thing, the dial with all the nice features, great audio quality, GPS. Oh, they can text. They do text messaging. And I have predefined texts for them so they don't have to type anything in. There's like 10 or 20 predefined text messages that you can do. So you can just do yes, no, where are you? You know, stuff like that, or, you know, call me, or, you know, are you okay? You can just do stuff like that where you can just send back simple yes and no answers. So anyways, Hytera radios, guys, that's where it's at. If you're wondering what to get a chest rig with 2 radio pouches, buy a Hytera, learn how to program it, get a guru, watch some videos on how to program these things, which you're really only going to probably get through a guru or me, because I think I have a video on it. So go watch it. I'm like the only person on YouTube that has a damn video on how to program a Hytera for kind of what you and me are doing. And it's probably not even that great of a video, but it's out there. It's on the channel. So go check it out. Guys, that's all I have for you. Stay safe. Be vigilant. Keep learning. Constantly be teaching yourself and sharpening your sword, which is your brain. And be teaching yourself new skills. It can be very easy to get distracted. It can be very easy to get caught up with everything in life and just forget about this stuff, or just have distractions and just get away from it for a while, but get back into it. This is your calling. Get back into it. Let's be men, y'all. God bless. Have a great day.